No, you don't need the.
I'm doing this my way. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items.
What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and I've had a very long day, and my day is not anywhere near finished, so I want to get this video out before I'm focused on other stuff again, just as like a quick break for me from my day job. So we have 4 games tomorrow on DraftKings. There's a 4-game slate, so we have Hanma Life against T1, LGD against BLG, Gen G against Sandbox, and EDG against Ultra Prime. So there have been a bunch of interesting matches recently. World Elite played against RNG today. World Elite actually won a game off of RNG, which isn't totally surprising. RNG hasn't looked as convincing as I've wanted them to be this split, and World Elite hasn't been as good as I wanted them to be this split. And, you know, those two narratives kind of combined into a spot where, although I wouldn't normally want to play World Elite at all, them picking up a game is not totally surprising to me based off of talent. And then yesterday we had OMG actually beat Top Esports in a game, which again is not that surprising. Anybody who has been following the channel for a decent amount of time knows that I like the talent on OMG. But, that's neither here nor there. Let's just move on to the games for today. So first up, we have BLG against LGD. BLG is a minus 263 favorite. LG is plus 200. Obviously, BLG is the better side in terms of name recognition, and people will most likely want to be on the BLG side. And then Ultra Prime and EDG. EDG is a minus 667 favorite against Ultra Prime plus 400. That's a big line, and I'm pretty surprised that it's that big. So let's talk about. Let's do LCK first. So T1 and Hanma Life. T1 is minus 2,000 against Hanma Life. That should be a cakewalk. And then Gen G against Sandbox is pretty surprising. Gen G is minus 625 against Sandbox. So my gut reaction says that Sandbox is the better play at plus 1.5 games, and Ultra Prime is the better play at plus 1.5 games. So those are the two matches where I think the underdogs have a legitimate shot just based off of the lines themselves. But let's take a look at the lineups because they are somewhat surprising in the LPL. So for LGD, we have Fearness, Shadow, Yedge, Awesome, and Jinzhao against Bin and some subs from BLG. So we have Can instead of Weiwei, we have Icon, we have Rise instead of Doggo, which is a big shock, and then we have Crisp. So Doggo was benched. I don't think that they should have benched Doggo. They acquired him for a reason. They think he's a good player. I don't think that this sends the right message. We had them move on from Fofo, apparently, so it's like, Fofo was replaced by Icon, Breathe was replaced by Bin, Can replaced Weiwei, and Rise replaced Doggo. So we're getting a pretty different team. Even with the substitutes, I think that that BLG should still be the right side, and the reason I think that is because you still have a very good support, or a very experienced world champion support in Crisp. You have Icon, who is a very experienced player as well, and you have Bin, who is still a very solid top laner overall. The big question mark comes around Can. In order for this team to compete, it's going to be up to Can to play the mid-game, early and mid-game well, and I would assume that he's capable of doing that, because if BLG runs out this roster and loses badly tonight, then we have much bigger problems than roster, because they should still be better than LGD from a talent perspective. Bin is still a very good top laner. I know that it's not the style of League of Legends that's best for DraftKings or Prize Picks or anything like that, but he's still a very good top laner. Icon is, worst case scenario, a league average mid laner, and then Crisp is definitely an above average support in the LPL and better than his counterpart in Jinzhao. So Rise will have to be, just kind of dragged along from this perspective. I don't know if there's going to be any champion pool limitations, but this is probably a spot where we're going to get discounts on jungle and AD carry role tonight. There is less certainty around BLG winning this match because of the substitutes that are in there, but I would still be on the BLG side. In the second match, we have EDG against Ultra Prime, and this is a spot where I think that we should really, really consider playing Ultra Prime. EDG has not been as convincing as people want them to be, so this is probably a lower... this could be seen as a buying opportunity for EDG coming off of their loss against V5. They still have a very good roster. They're the reigning world champions: Flandre, Jai, Scout, Viper, Mako. I think that Flandre and Zoom, from a talent perspective, are pretty even. Flandre is the better carry player. Will come down to draft whether or not they play into that matchup. Jai against Hacker. Jai is better than Hacker, but not by much. They are somewhat different stylistically. I prefer Jai slightly, but not very much at all. Scout is better than Cryan, full stop, not even close. I don't like Cryan's champion pool in terms of what he's best at. I just don't think that that's the way that you should be playing League of Legends. There are a lot of players out there who do so professionally at a good level, and Cryan does play at a good enough level and can justify his spot within a team. But I think that he's holding back Lck and Xiaoxi, and Lck and Xiaoxi are a very good bot lane. I don't think that they're at the same level as Viper and Mako. I think Viper and Mako are a little bit better than Lck and Xiaoxi, but if you swapped Lck and Xiaoxi onto EDG, I think they would still be a very competitive team. Although, I could see you taking Lck and Xiaoxi and putting them onto a better top side of the map, onto a team with a better top side of the map, and being a very good bot lane, and people would have a much different opinion of them. So this is a spot where I am taking a look at Ultra Prime. My one fear for this matchup is that it's going to devolve into a lower kill score situation. So maybe you're better off playing towards maybe EDG just plays low variance League of Legends and then can kind of out macro Ultra Prime and get the 2-0. But I would definitely say that it's not going to be an easy night for people to just jam stuff on DraftKings and League of Legends, which is a good opportunity for things like the qualifiers and the nightly big GPP. So maybe try to get some unique lineups in there, and it'll be a better night for that. There's no clear-cut plays. T1 is definitely the easiest play on the slate. T1 against Hanwha. You can play any stack of T1 that you want as long as it fits within salary constraints and be pretty confident that they are going to win their 2-0. The question comes down to, will Hanwha be competitive enough to win keep some of these team fights close to force the additional opportunities for team fights around later game Dragons, later game Barons, and force T1 to kill them close to 20 times. If you are on the fence about that, then you can still be comfortable playing the support role. You can still be comfortable playing the team slot, because if they get the 2-0, they should score highly enough, especially in a lower, smaller field competition, because you don't necessarily need to get that 99th percentile outcome to make money. And then last but not least, we have Genji against Sandbox. And this is a kind of a trap spot, I think, for people who follow League of Legends somewhat closely. Sandbox is a pretty good team. They are not as good as Genji. I think that the sportsbook is trying to incentivize people to play Sandbox. They beat Nongshim. They beat Hanwha Life. And Fred Brion, they've been having a good season. They beat DRX. It's a spot where the sportsbook wants you to play Sandbox at plus 400 or play them with the maps, the plus 1.5 maps. I don't think that I'm going to be comfortable playing them as an outright unless it's like a $10, $15 entry going for the 10K top slot trying to be different. So, if I had to go through each individual matchup, I would say T1 most likely 2-0 Hanwha Life. I would say that BLG will probably win 2-1. Genji probably wins 2-1, and EDG probably wins 2-1. So if you're looking for game not played bonuses, I would go with T1. My favorite captain from T1, assuming that rosters, the salaries fit, which isn't a certainty, I would think that Gumayusi is definitely the go-to that you want to get into your lineup first. If you're having trouble building lineups, then maybe you could justify going to Zeus. Zeus's matchup against Dudu should be good. And, you know, if you get a double top lineup where both your top laners go off, that could be a very good recipe for success. For BLG, I think that the player you want to get in probably from an ownership perspective is Ryze. Some people will be afraid because they don't know who Ryze is and they don't know how good he is. But in League of Legends, AD carries are pretty replaceable as long as they, you know, can function mechanically at the professional level. And for a team like BLG to bring up this player, you would have to assume that he can. I'd rather if I lose $35 tomorrow because Ryze ends up being the worst AD carry of all time, then I lose $35. I'm not going to lose any sleep about it. Then Gen G against Sandbox. I think this is a good chance to play Ruler. I hope that Sandbox can be competitive. Their bot lane does look pretty good. I don't think they're as good as Gen G, and I think that this might just turn into like an opportunity for us to realize how much of a gap there is between Gen G, the top three of Gen G, Damwon, and T1 compared to teams like Sandbox and DRX. Like, that's a very real possibility. And then in the last matchup, my favorite captain is definitely going to be Viper. The only problem is that Ultra Prime will be trying to get Elk ahead in the bot lane. There will be additional attention in the bot lane. That could be a very good thing, or that could be a very bad thing for DraftKings. So if you can fit together, you know, EDG plus T1, EDG plus BLG, EDG plus Gen G with those 80 carry captains, then go for it. I don't think it's going to be that easy. I don't think I'd want to play Mako as a captain. Flandre, you could probably convince me, but EDG is most likely not going to be my primary stack tonight. So that's basically it. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.